Hi guys, Harry here, and until Doctor Who Redacted debuted earlier this year and we had all 10 episodes from start to finish of Series 1 of Doctor Who Redacted, we hadn't had a Doctor Who spin-off since 2016 Class, which was 6 years ago. So this video is going to go over, was Doctor Who Redacted good, and could this bring back spin-offs to the Doctor Who universe. But before we get into the video, don't forget to subscribe, also leave a like and comment down below, and let's get into the video. So, we haven't had a lot of Doctor Who spin-offs, with Doctor Who Redacted being the most recent one, and there being only 3 other spin-offs really previously, being the Sarah Jane Adventures, Torchwood, and Class, and the previous one before Doctor Who Redacted, Class, debuting in 2016 and running across that year, and of course that was 6 years ago, so it's been a while since we've had a Doctor Who spin-off, and I thought, could Doctor Who Redacted be the catalyst that brings back Doctor Who spin-offs? A lot of the Doctor Who spin-offs, with Sarah Jane Adventures and Torchwood, debuted in the Russell T Davies area. We also had Doctor Who Confidential as well, so there was a lot of behind the scenes and a lot of other spin-offs, making the world of Doctor Who seem much wider and bigger. And with Russell T Davies returning, I noticed that Doctor Who Redacted, a lot of the references were to the Russell T Davies era. There was almost no mentions of the Moffat era, and there was even hardly any mentions of the Chibnall era. So there was with Russell T Davies returning, could he kind of build Doctor Who Redacted back into Doctor Who and bring back more spin-offs? As I think in a lot of fans' minds, spin-offs have been great. Of course, the 2 most popular spin-offs were the Sarah Jane Adventures and Torchwood, and Sarah Jane Adventures followed, obviously, Sarah Jane Smith, as she fought aliens with her son, Luke, and his friends, Clyde, and also Maria, later being replaced by Rani, and then later getting a younger sister, Sky. So they kind of fought aliens off, and obviously Sarah Jane is from the classic Doctor Who was introduced into New Who to get her introduced back into Doctor Who to get her own spin-off. And the Sarah Jane Adventures was a massive hit. It had an average viewing figure of 1.7 million, with a low of 0.5 million and a high of 2.92 million. Now, I know that isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things, but with the way that Doctor Who has been going, it's quite a high figure and also it wasn't the highest figure, because there was a Red Nose Day special which had a viewing figure of 8.3 million. So that is insane, and that is just a Red Nose Day special. And of course, it wasn't really Sarah Jane's the Sarah Jane Adventures' fault that the viewing figures were quite low, with 0.53 million, because it was stuck in CBBC, a children's show, for a lot of that time. So a lot of classic fans who knew about Sarah Jane Smith wouldn't watch that, and a lot of the new fans, especially as the series went on, they would have no knowledge of Sarah Jane even existing in the Doctor Who universe, as she only showed up in the Tennant era, and her final series progressed past that, so when her series was kind of running parallel with the Moffat era. And also it's quite a big viewing figure for a children's show, and I think that it has been a really great spin-off, with Series 5, the final series, being the worst series, with an average viewing figure of 0.5 million. However, with credit to the Sarah Jane Adventures, that series was only half finished with the untimely death of Elizabeth Sladen. So, with their worst series, being an unfinished series, that is not that bad. And also, I think they had a really perfect send-off in the Sarah Jane Adventures with Goodbye Sarah Jane in Series 4, which I think was the highest series of viewing figures they had. So I think that is a really great job in the Sarah Jane Adventures. And next we get on to the other great spin-off, Torchwood, which I think is even higher in fans' minds than the Sarah Jane Adventures. Torchwood was more catered towards adults and a more gritty feeling rather than just the main series of Doctor Who and the other spin-offs, which Torchwood followed Captain Jack Harkness, which was introduced obviously in Doctor Who, and he became a fan favourite, launching into Torchwood, the spin-off, as it had been introduced in the main TV show as well. And fans instantly loved Torchwood, with an average viewing figure of 3.8 million, which is, I think it's beating a lot of the Jodie episodes. And that's not all. It did have a low of 0.88 million, but a high of 6.76 million, which I think beats all of Flux. So Torchwood, at its high, did a really great job. Unfortunately, Series 1 was the worst, with an average of 1.2 million, but I think this was put in fans' minds that Torchwood is bad, and with Captain Jack only coming across a few episodes until Torchwood was released, it kind of set in fans' minds, should this be a spin-off that we watch? Should this be something to watch? As Torchwood and the Sarah Jane Adventures were the first spin-offs put to fans' minds, so they didn't know how to react with a Doctor Who spin-off, like should they watch it or not? Especially with Torchwood, because Torchwood in Doctor Who was, well, it was kind of brought on that Torchwood was an evil organisation, and they weren't trying to fight, and they weren't trying to, like, keep the planet protected from aliens, but they were trying to destroy them and build it up so that the British could control not even just the world, but other planets and other galaxies. However, Torchwood cemented itself with being excellent, and Series 2 and Series 3 were really high in fans' minds, with Series 3 obviously getting the high of 6.7 million, and with the interesting characters, I think it was a certain that Torchwood was going to be great. And then we had Class, which was a spin-off in the Moffat era, specifically when Peter Capaldi was the Doctor, and it was a kind of for the young adult audience, like kind of like 16 or higher age group that this spin-off was catered for. And of course it was in Coal Hill School. It was set there where, if you don't know, this was where Clara Oswald, a companion of the 11th and 12th Doctor, was a teacher. Unfortunately, this is after Clara's character was kind of like quote-unquote killed off. But Class still had a pretty good rate. It is unfortunately the lowest performing spin-off, with an average viewing figure of 0.9 million, with a low of 0.5 million and a high of 1.1 million. However, it is only slightly below the lowest viewing figure of the Sarah Jane Adventures, so it's not too bad, and it did reach highs of 1.1 million, which isn't, well, I suppose it's just over a million miles away, a million views away from the Sarah Jane Adventures. But Class still held its own. It didn't have the kind of boost that Torchwood and the Sarah Jane Adventures had with having a returning character. There was no returning characters in Class. There was only reliant on, in the first episode, of Peter Capaldi, the Doctor, showing up. However, the Sarah Jane Adventures had Sarah Jane Smith, and Torchwood had Captain Jack to kind of propel the spin-off that, yeah, this should be a spin-off that we watch. However, Class didn't have that, and I think getting an average viewing figure of 0.9 million, especially with the other things I'm going to mention later in the video, I think that they did a really great job. And now, of course, we come on to Doctor Who Redacted, which hasn't been mentioned online since the week Salvation finished, only by me that I could find on YouTube. But Doctor Who Redacted hasn't been mentioned for 2 weeks, but most of the videos, YouTube videos on Doctor Who Redacted, were before Doctor Who Redacted even came out. I think this is a shame, as a lot of people I think would really like this spin-off. However, it wasn't marketed a lot, and of course in just podcast form, it kind of cuts out a lot of the action that we see in Doctor Who. But I think it's great if fans just gave it a chance. I think a lot of fans would really love it, and it's a shame that it hasn't even been mentioned, as Doctor Who Redacted, as I said earlier in this video, can open the door, can help other spin-offs come back to the TV. So I think this could be a great reason as why Doctor Who Redacted is something worth watching, and how it could open the door to spin-offs, which I think is a great thing. And for the spin-offs, it doesn't have to be you just watch Doctor Who, so you have to watch the spin-offs. All the spin-offs catered to someone different. The Sarah Jane Adventures was catered more towards children, which was great. Having it put on CBBC at first, so that kids would be like, if they were just watching that channel, they would come across the Sarah Jane Adventures. And if they watch Doctor Who, which happened with me, I watched Doctor Who with the Ninth Doctor, and then I was also watching CBBC, and I came across the Sarah Jane Adventures, and I recognised Sarah Jane from a school reunion, and I thought this was great and watched it, and I really liked it, which I think is a great thing. However, if you weren't a kid at that time, that's fine, because there was Torchwood, which was catered more towards adults, and it provided a more gritty, real thing. And there was someone like Captain Jack, there was Captain Jack, kind of leading it, providing that kind of familiarity towards Doctor Who. And you didn't even have to watch Torchwood at that time, because I loved Torchwood, but I didn't watch it until Peter Capaldi was the Doctor, and I watched it on iPlayer. I didn't even watch it when it first came out, but I still loved it. I didn't even know who Tosh and Owen were when they were mentioned in Doctor Who, but it didn't take me out of that immersion. I knew they were going to die, but it didn't take me out of that immersion. I still felt a real great thing to it. And also Class was catered more towards young adults, and I think this is great, as I didn't watch Class until the end of Torchwood, but it wasn't like it was too childish Class, it was towards young adults, and it kind of provided a more gritty, real theme. And there were some stellar episodes in Class. I know Class is really seen as a bad Doctor Who spin-off, which, yeah, a lot of the episodes were bad, and a lot of the characters just acted like rude, but there are some stellar episodes in it, especially episodes 6 and 7. They are episodes that are better than a lot of Doctor Who episodes, really. And then we have Doctor Who Redacted, which seems more catered towards females and trans people. But you don't have to be a female or a trans person to really like this spin-off. It is a great spin-off, and I know I am kind of gushing over all these spin-offs, but they are great. A lot of people really loved how when we didn't have Doctor Who, it provided us with more Doctor Who media, rather than having to build on books or audio dramas, kind of shoehorning the Doctor in as more media gets expanded. Like with David Tennant, there is less and less time for adventures to be shoehorned into when he was the Doctor. With all the expanded media, most of the expanded media is David Tennant, but that he's running out of room. Like, also, how is David Tennant going to return in the 60th anniversary? That just raises so many questions. I think spin-offs without the Doctor is a great way, as Torchwood didn't have the Doctor at all. Sarah Jane Adventures only had, I think, 3 episodes with the Doctor. Class only had 1, and Doctor Who Redacted only had 1, really, as well, with the 13th Doctor appeared a lot of it, but it was kind of the same thing. So I think this is a really great thing to have more Doctor Who media. Why wouldn't Doctor Who fans want more Doctor Who media? I think a big reason why the Doctor Who spin-offs took off was that Torchwood and the Sarah Jane Adventures obviously had Captain Jack Harkness and Sarah Jane Smith respectively, which was familiarity to Doctor Who. And what I really loved in Doctor Who Redacted was there was a lot of references to Doctor Who. The only one that is hindered in this department is Class, which is widely regarded as the worst Doctor Who spin-off. But I think Torchwood, The Sarah Jane Adventures, and even Doctor Who Redacted has enough of Doctor Who, enough of the Doctor for it to not feel tonally different, and for it to feel inclusive, and for you to feel really good once you've watched Doctor Who, but also not alienate the audience who hasn't seen Doctor Who. So I think it is great reason why Torchwood and The Sarah Jane Adventures are really great spin-offs in fans' minds. Now, I have been praising the BBC and other productions and the people making all these Doctor Who spin-offs. However, Doctor Who has a problem with its spin-offs. Especially, I saw this a lot in Doctor Who Redacted. How it wasn't marketed really at all. The only thing I got to go off was, I think, some comments said about it and how I watch other Doctor Who YouTube channels, and someone mentioned this, and I thought, I didn't hear anything about this. There wasn't anything really marketed that big. If it wasn't for me actually going in to look at it, YouTube comments and other Doctor Who YouTube channels, I would have just totally not known about Doctor Who Redacted, and that is a shame, as I really liked Doctor Who Redacted, and it would have been just a shame to miss it. However, it's also, the BBC have a problem again, because with it just not being marketed at all on the lead up, they kind of just pushed Doctor Who Redacted to the side and tried to get on with it like it didn't even exist, as there was a lot of news being revealed in the time that Doctor Who Redacted was on. Like Ncuti Gatwa being revealed as the 14th Doctor, David Tennant and Catherine Tate returning as the Doctor and Donna, probably the only thing fans are talking about right now, and Yasmin Finney revealed to be in the Doctor Who 60th anniversary, along with Neil Patrick Harris, who is in an unknown role, convincing fans to speculate, we have to know who it is, and that is just the confirmed stuff. So, there is so much stuffed into it that we can't even, like, the 14th Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa, David Tennant and Catherine Tate, Yasmin Finney, Neil Patrick Harris, 4 main big things. And again, just the confirmed stuff. There's also stuff like Beep the Meep and the Wrath Warriors that people are convinced are returning on the leaked set photos, along with leaked set photos of Wilf, Donna's granddad, and also her other family, along with her mother and also her husband. And there has been speculation that Yasmin Finney is going to be Donna's daughter. So it's just insane. And also there have been references of Mal, and maybe even photos of Mal in the 60th anniversary. Of course, a classic Doctor Who companion. So it's like they've put in all this stuff. We have to speculate. We have to see who it is. Well, Doctor Who Redacted is going on, and it needed the marketing for people to know about it, and it needed the time into it. We could have had all this stuff out now, and we would have had lots of Doctor Who media all along, rather than we're kind of in this vacuum now without any new Doctor Who news. Just plan it out well. BBC, Russell T Davies, Bad Wolf Productions, have the Doctor Who Redacted spin-off, yeah, BBC Sounds, then all the news about Ncuti Gatwa, David Tennant. People would love it, as they have loved it, but people aren't talking about Doctor Who Redacted. And this could have opened the door for so many things. The references were so insanely on point. They were so good. And no one is talking about it. No one seems to care. And we would have had Doctor Who media feeding us until we got Jodie's finale. And then maybe a Christmas episode with David Tennant returning, and then maybe the 60th anniversary. People are speculating it's going to be a 3-parter. But it's just a shame that we don't get that. We got all the Doctor Who media jumped in together with no time for a spin-off that obviously costs quite a bit of money. Why? And speaking about all Doctor Who media, with the expanded media, they have again a problem with David Tennant returning as the Doctor in the 60th anniversary. And that is just saying, really, there's no one that can be the Doctor. If they're not David Tennant, they're not worth watching. And that is confirmed in Doctor Who Redacted, which is so sad, as this was a story about powerful females, powerful trans people, and David Tennant is the Doctor that saved Cleo. This time not outshining only the 13th Doctor, as it has done many times when they've met up in expanded media, or expanded media coming out at the same time the 13th Doctor series was on. And the 10th Doctor outshined the 13th Doctor at every single point. And this time he outshines Cleo, a trans woman, and that just brings a really bad mark on the BBC, I think, because you're showing that, yeah, okay, you're overshadowing a future incarnation of what is essentially the same character. That's pretty bad, but it's not really ending the franchise. But this kind of is. It's like, look at this white, straight male. Look at this trans woman. Don't care about the trans woman. Throw her off. Don't care about her. Watch the white male. Watch what he does best. Whatever he does is so insanely good. And I'm not here to say that David Tennant is bad. I love David Tennant. He was the first Doctor in which I really, really watched. I watched all his episodes. As soon as he became the Doctor, I watched every single one of his episodes when they came out. And I got my family into it because David Tennant was in there. But once he was gone, it was like, yes, I'm really sad he's gone, but move on. And it's coming back to it, saying that nothing is good unless it's Russell T Davies and David Tennant. And that is sad, especially in Doctor Who Redacted, which was all about trans people. However, with that all being said, the Doctor Who spin-offs, I think, are still missing something. And in my opinion, is that the characters in especially Torchwood Miracle Day and a lot of the episodes with Class, the characters are just rude or nasty or mean for no reason whatsoever. It really compels you to hate them. And you're supposed to be rooting for these characters. And that is just the main thing in Torchwood Miracle Day. As I just watched Torchwood recently again, all of them, Series 1, Series 2, Series 3, well, Children of Earth and Series 4 Miracle Day. And Torchwood Miracle Day was just like, almost like homework. I stopped. I went away for like a couple of days, not really bringing myself to watch it again. And they are just... And it's because the characters are rude or nasty or mean or cruel for no reason. And the same thing with a lot of Class. Now, I know a lot of Class is because these are supposed to be anti-hero type of people. And a lot of bad things have happened to them in Class. But it just compels you to hate them. And with the Sarah Jane Adventures in Series 5, the characters are amazing. However, the series itself is just bland. Along with Series 4 being the perfect ending to the Sarah Jane Adventures, it just makes Series 5 so much more stick out like a sore thumb. And I know it's really bad because Elizabeth Sladen had her untimely death, and of course they couldn't finish Sarah Jane Adventures Series 5. But it's just bland, and it makes it so much worse with Series 4 being so perfect as a send-off to the Sarah Jane, as a send-off to Sarah Jane Smith and the Sarah Jane Adventures. But it just makes Series 5 seem so much more worse. And also, Doctor Who Redacted is missing something. Maybe the fact that it's a podcast with no visuals, or the 10th Doctor is basically the most important Doctor in the series, where basically all the characters were women. So it isolates men, as all the characters are women, but then it kind of says, no, men are the most important people. So maybe it's because there's no visual, so it kind of takes you out of the immersion, or maybe there's two big opinions there that contradict just to fit which character is most important at that time, which I think is a real shame. However, I think the biggest error of Doctor Who Redacted was marketing, as there was basically none, and this has come across all three spin-offs 4 with Doctor Who Redacted, as they're kind of put there to prove themselves. The Sarah Jane Adventures was stuck on CBBC until series 3, so only children really knew about that, and it was kind of, you can't watch this unless you are a child. Torchwood was on BBC 3 for series 1, kind of in the 3rd slot, which was taken now to prove itself, to move on to the main channels. And this is devastating, because I know BBC is now back on TV, but it was away for a while, depriving us of such greatness. Imagine if Torchwood came out when BBC 3 wasn't on TV. I bet it wouldn't even be talked about. It wouldn't have got past its first series. And Class was put on at 10:45 PM, the graveyard slot as referred to, debuting on a Monday. Who would watch a young adult Doctor Who spin-off on a Monday at 10:45 PM? I bet most parents would want their teenagers, their young adults in bed at that time for college or even school. And it's like, you're basically putting them in a bad slot. And Doctor Who Redacted, in number 1 SOS, it was put on BBC Sound right after Doctor Who Legend of the Sea Devils. But everyone was just talking about Doctor Who Legend of the Sea Devils, meaning Doctor Who Redacted, even in its first episode, was kind of set up to failure. And this is without even mentioning the K9 spin-offs, which we had K9 and Company and K9. And even though K9 and Company did get 8.4 million views, no one mentions it. No one really remembers K9 and Company or the 2010 Australian K9 series. And that is a real shame, as I love K9 in Doctor Who and in the Sarah Jane Adventures. But no one cares about it. Even though it got 8.4 million views, no one remembers it. And I really like Torchwood, the Sarah Jane Adventures, Doctor Who Redacted, and even Class had its moments. But I think Doctor Who has a problem. It doesn't trust its spin-offs. It says, look, you have this slot, you like it or lump it, and you make it a success. You make us trust that we made the right decision, but you're going to be in a hindrance. You're on a channel that no one really watches that much, or you're in a graveyard slot, and it's up to you to be great. And the Sarah Jane Adventures and Torchwood really prove themselves. And if you go back and look at all these spin-offs, some of the series have bad moments, like Sarah Jane Adventures Series 5 and Torchwood Miracle Day. And Class, most of the episodes, like episode 2, 3, 4, they're all being pretty bad. But then there are some stellar episodes in there too. But Doctor Who doesn't trust it. But I think Torchwood Series 1 and 2 is amazing, as well as the Sarah Jane Adventures Series 1 to 4 being incredible. And Class with episode 1, episode 6, and especially episode 7 and 8 is amazing. 6 and 7 especially are just amazing. But all of those episodes that I mentioned are incredible, and that's with Class being disregarded. And of course, listen to all of Doctor Who Redacted, as they are amazing. And I think that Doctor Who Redacted could have launched spin-offs back onto the small screen. But it wasn't marketed, and no one really listened to it, which is a shame. I implore you, if you haven't watched any Doctor Who spin-offs, watch Torchwood, watch the Sarah Jane Adventures, watch Class, listen to Doctor Who Redacted, and you will know how amazing they are. Especially Torchwood Series 1 to 2, the Sarah Jane Adventures Series 1 through to 4, and Class episodes 1, 6, 7 and 8, and of course all of Doctor Who Redacted, as I think, come on, we need to get this to the BBC. Other Doctor Who YouTube channels, if you are watching this, please help me. Everyone of my subscribers or who sees this, please share this out. And thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.